The Canadian Wild Turkey Federation presents
Turkey Talk
with your hosts, the guys that keep it real. From the Real Outdoor Experience, it's Carlin Riley and Ian McCleary. Stay tuned, folks. We discuss way more than just turkey hunting tips and tricks. If conservation, protection, and enhancement of the outdoors is important to you, you have come to the right place. It's go time.
3, 2, 1, let's go.
Hi, folks. Thanks for tuning in to the CWTF's Turkey Talk podcast with your hosts, Carlin and Ian from the Real Outdoor Experience. Today, we have a guest who needs no introduction. Canada in the Rough and the Beasley Brothers are names widely recognized in Canada and beyond. Keith and his brothers, Paul and Kevin, are advocates, spokesmen for all us hunters. Their hunting adventure documentary series, Canada in the Rough, has been voted Canada's best hunting show and has a long time Saturday morning staple in our household. I can tell you that for sure. Because it's early in this episode, I just want to help you all remember. I wanted to mention a video that I've watched so many times. It's a Canada in the Rough video. It's called Why We Hunt. As hunters, we sometimes struggle with being our own advocates, knowing what to say to people, how to explain your feelings about hunting. And, sometimes you get into those awkward, crucial conversations with those that don't hunt and don't understand why we do what we do. And this video and the message will help you with those messages. So of all the seasons and all the episodes that I've watched of Canada in the Rough over the years, this video really resonated with me. And I just want to make sure that you all take the 4 minutes, go to Canada in the Rough YouTube channel and check this video out. I'll put a link in the podcast below somewhere in all the stuff. I'll also put the bio for Keith and his brothers and Canada in the Rough. Again, it's called Why We Hunt with Keith Beasley. Now, folks, without further pause, so happy to welcome Keith Beasley, co-host of Canada in the Rough. Keith, thank you so much for taking the time out of your enormously busy schedule. We truly appreciate it. I know you guys are in production this time of year, so thanks and welcome.
Yeah, thank you guys. It's an absolute pleasure to be here, to be honest. And thank you guys for inviting. It's a very worthy cause, and hopefully you and anybody listening knows that it's not taking time in a busy schedule. This is our life, and this is what we do, and it's what we love, and it's an absolute pleasure to talk about it. So thank you.
Awesome.
It's nice to get eyes on you. I've missed being able to see at the Sportsman Show as we have, in Toronto for the last bunch of years. It's one of the fallouts of COVID is not being able to have that type of interaction, and people that you typically get used to seeing on an annual basis in person. You can shake hands and chat, catch up a little bit. As soon as you don't have it, it's like, man, you know what? I miss those opportunities. So it really is good to get eyes on you. And when you see your brothers, please extend our good wishes as well.
I will. Thank you very much. And we agree. It's normally show season time, where every weekend from now to May, we're visiting somewhere across the country. So it is weird because friendships are wonderful to see and catch up. So I agree.
Awesome. Well, you know what? We'll start off with the CWTF and what kind of relationship have you had with the CWTF, past and present?
Well, other than thinking they're an incredible organization with an incredible message and an incredible cause, I don't know how to define the relationship other than just we're big believers and supporters of it, and think it's essential and critical not only to just the future of hunting and the health and herd management of animals, but just a team of well-led volunteers that bleed for what's best for the outdoors. They just happen to have turkey in their name, but they're just a great group with great leadership. And I guess for us, long before full formation started, we went out and appeared, if you could say. It sounds kind of egotistical. I don't mean it to. Paul went out to New Brunswick, and they were starting the introduction of wild turkeys probably over a decade ago, and met some of the influencers and players that were beginning to recognize the need for a group like this. Barry Smith being one of them, and Mike Holland, the minister of New Brunswick, and Terry, heavily involved with CWTF. So I think relationship-wise, we've known many good people involved, and big believers in this cause and what it is and what it stands for.
That's awesome. And that's good timing. And we just got an email the other day from Terry, from Mike Holland and the minister, and just it was a copy of the legislation that they're going to enact out there. So they will be having a turkey season coming up soon. So, you know, that it just shows you how much work and how much time it takes to institute turkey hunting in different provinces. And, you know, I know that we're all in Ontario, Ian in New York today, so that's the exception. But Ontario has such a great population of turkeys. And, you know, I was out this morning driving around and I saw a couple little flocks, and the strutters are out there strutting, and it's still -7, but it's a beautiful day, and it just it gets the heart pumping. And I am so ready for turkey hunting. Just something I love so much.
That's a great point. And two sides of that. One is it takes a long time. It takes a lot of great people. It also, that example, I believe, took a minister who cared enough to believe a priority was on the natural resource and make sure it moved forward. Without a person like Mike Holland helping to make those decisions, and I hope this doesn't offend anybody, I don't know if that would have happened the same way. And that goes across Canada from coast to coast, and it goes south of the border and internationally. If politicians don't support what we do and believe in what we do and believe that hunters are good people doing a good thing, we don't see the needle move forward on things that should be part of this process and easily decided on, but often aren't. So, not to make this political, but hats off literally to the decision makers that are letting something like that happen, because it really is just good common sense and should be there and should be in place. So I salute them for that.
Oh, well said.
Even with that that political backing from Mike Holland, with the resources of the CWTF and the army of volunteers that organization brings, and communications with the landowners, and then the physical trap and transport of turkeys to reintroduce them. You said Paul was out there a decade ago, and only
over a decade.
They're on the cusp of actually being able to have their first hunt. Like it's a big wheel that a lot of people get involved in helping to turn. So it really is good to see. And I mean, it happens in Ontario too. I mean, I went to university in Peterborough, and you never saw turkeys, you know, and that was back in the early 90s.
We were adults when we shot our first turkey growing up here, because they weren't available.
We were all of us were. All of us were. There was no youth hunting when turkeys were being introduced. So it really is a great success story, and I think that people need to be continuously reminded that it's because of organizations like CWTF, OFA, you know, and you know, sister organizations like Ducks Unlimited, and that all go into making events like that possible. So
I agree, and I hope what I said didn't take away or detract, but all the work OFA, CWTF, all these armies of volunteers, that's the best way to put it, armies of people that love and have a passion. If all that work went and fell on deaf ears and no one moved it forward where it legally has to at that one spot, it just would bottleneck everything. It's so frustrating. So it celebrates everyone involved, the army of people, but thankfully decision makers are helping these things be done. So Ontario, we've been blessed for so long to have such an incredible season and hunt. But born and raised here, we used to get up at 2 a.m. to go chase our first turkeys 2 and 3 hours away because we didn't have them here. So I hear and understand what you're saying.
Raise your hand if you've gotten up at 2 o'clock in the morning to go turkey hunting.
or slept in the truck because after a night of walleye fishing, it wasn't worth an hour's sleep.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. So if we could back that up a little bit, Keith, how did you and your brothers, you know, being just youngsters that were, you know, hunting with your dads, and I think you had some uncles that you hunted with as well. How did you guys wind up being, you know, hosts of Canada in the Rough? What did that journey look like?
Yeah, that's such a long-winded, I'll try to make it as short as possible, but I mean, you have to take us three brothers and compare us to just about any other young outdoor-oriented minded kid in Canada that loves it, right? I can't get enough of this. How can I do more of this? This is awesome. So what ways can we do? And very young and very broke, Kevin going to Fleming, Paul going to Trent, where it sounds like you went to, and me just graduating Fleming, starting in a financial career for me, which was floundering very badly, trying to be a financial planner. My very kind boss up in Toronto that owned the financial institution I worked for was building a giant log cabin up in Temagami and asked that the three of us one summer spend our summer up there as soon as they were at school, to the end of April till the end of the summer. Pioneer draw knifing, literally the draw knife, the giant 50-foot butt wide white pine from bark down to carved log. So we spent our summer working, and the three of us realized real quickly, bit irony here, that instead of being on a log each and not going very fast, we'd be better to get on, three of us on one log together and work as a team and rotate and share. And then you start dreaming of, how do you make a living hunting? How do people do this? Where is this at? And as you guys know, Canada did not have a lot of full-time hunting opportunities back in 02, 03 when we started doing this. So we dreamed up a way to start a deer hunting magazine, and then that took off and grew, and we put Paul full-time at it. And then 5 years after that, Can in the Rough was started, ironically, the same time the magazine did, both launched at the same time, not knowing of it. It came along to become and take over Can in the Rough from Thomas Pigeon, and then put Kevin full-time. And then 3 years after that, I jumped and went, all three of us. And crazy enough, April, at the beginning of Turkey, on April 25th in Ontario for the opening day here, will mark the 18th season of filming for Can in the Rough, and our 13th. Kind of hard to believe. So just
wow.
quick little note. I guess that's the Reader's Digest version of it.
Yeah, no, it is amazing, because how many Saturday mornings do you remember, Carlin, growing up, watching, these guys on the show? 17 seasons now on air.
17's airing now. Yeah, season 17 went to air
18.
in January. New episodes are coming out every week.
Well, I knew that you guys had started the Ontario Monster Whitetails. I didn't realize that magazine had actually started prior to you joining Canada in the Rough.
5 years. Yeah, we've been going 5 full years, and there's one of the neat stories about that. We'd if TV were on a scale of this big, magazine on a scale this big in comparison, using money terms, one being national, one being provincial, we learned the industry on our own small vertical niche scale, and we'd met the same very people that made the world go round on the bigger national scale. So TV opportunity came, and I went into the same sales meetings to pitch the same on a different level. I knew these people. I knew most of them, or I knew their friend, or I knew a connection, or great men like John Mock, who used to run Stoker Canada, which is Beretta. Once we'd worked with him, then Excalibur could phone and ask him what he thought of the Beasleys, and then other people could call, and it quickly became that 5 years was very critical to us in our minds to succeeding, because we'd already, I guess, made relationships and earned people's trust, and the next step wasn't so scary for people to put their name on us and let us walk around with a camera, I guess. So.
The Ontario Monster Whitetails is such a fun magazine, because it's although it focuses on Ontario, when you're reading it, a lot of the contributors are people that you actually know. And it can be like, I think there have been a couple of times where it's like, oh my God, that was a buddy of mine. I've actually seen that rack in his living room, and he's, there's his story in your pages. So you do what? There's 4
issues a year.
Yeah, 4 issues a year. Each one is 20, 25 stories of just hunts, and how, regular guys came across, irregular deer and uncommon deer. It's just such a fun magazine to read, because it's just hunting stories. It's great.
Well, and growing up in Peterborough with no turkeys, no bears, no moose, we became whitetail guys. That's our heart and soul is in whitetails, and we couldn't get our hands on enough content to read, and we were voracious readers and researchers and learning and studying, and but we really kind of got tired of hearing about Saskatchewan or Texas or Illinois or Iowa. It was wonderful, but it never resonated at home. And I'll never forget, to be honest with you, I met Thomas Pigeon the first time for the show, and he said, this new show, and I'll never forget the first thing I said to him was, but when are you gonna do an Ontario whitetail episode where we can see it from our own neck of the woods? And that never left us. And that's what the magazine was built on, people from our own neck of the woods doing what we do, fighting over 50 acres of land and taking, spread manure and throwing hay bales and picking rocks for the farmer to make sure you protect that, and then having 5 guys around you. Like, it's a different world, and we loved it. And then the show circuit we talked about became a big piece for us with owning the Ontario record books as well. FROW, the Foundation for Recognition of Ontario Wildlife, and scoring the deer and the bear and the moose, and the turkeys then added to that, and we got to go and travel to Oil Springs near Sarnia and Tilbury near Windsor and Delaware near London, and then hit, Peterborough and Napanee and Ottawa and Carp, and start meeting these incredible hunters across the province. And it just became so easy to share their stories and just to realize that they were just like us, but they'd had one of those magic moments where they connected with a giant, and they wanted to share it just like we did. So it was a lot of fun. Still a lot of fun.
That's awesome. What's your biggest personal whitetail? What would the score be?
Yeah, so that's a bit of a touchy subject because I got two brothers who are well ahead of me on that. So my biggest net would be, I've shot a couple of 155s, Ontario whitetails. Kevin has shot a couple of giants. So he shot an Ontario 198 2 years ago, and he shot a 174 5 years ago. And then Paul has shot, his biggest Ontario one would be 160, but he shot a Saskatchewan 175. So but those are very unique because they were shot on farms we've hunted for 30 years around Peterborough, and historically Peterborough's not known for producing a lot of 200-inch deer. So one of these ones that Kevin harvested, two of them are just world class. And when it comes to how we've survived so long without beating each other up, is you have to make it fair. And that's not fair what he did, but it worked out to his turn those days when the stars lined up. And I can honestly tell you, and when one of us is able to do that, it feels like we all did it, and it's such a team effort. And the first phone call you make isn't often to your wife and kids, it's to each other to come, whatever you're doing, drop it and get to the woods to be with them to do the recovery, because we all want to be there. So
wow, those are great memories.
Well, and getting any deer in the 150s, like I think that there's a lot of guys out there that think that they've got deer in the 150s, but when they actually scored, it'd probably be 125 or 130. But even that, compared to when you started, like you said, 30 years ago, when you're dogging 50-acre bushes in Peterborough, getting a deer of that class that would have been a pretty rare thing back then.
Extremely rare. And I can tell you on one hand how many I've seen with my own eyes before I was 20. It was extremely rare. And I guess that's, for us, that's where things kind of took off, is we did what everybody else did, just shot, brown it's down mentality. And there's nothing wrong with that. So this is just telling you my own story. People's legal harvest of deer, turkeys, or bear, we fully support. But for us, after 5 years of realizing that, after a week of hunting the same bush, we weren't seeing anything anymore, and we weren't seeing big bucks, and why were other guys getting them? We wanted real bad to start shooting big bucks consistently, and that's what changed for us. We at an early age decided to start passing animals and searching for how to become big buck hunters, and that became the passion, which really fueled and drove our future. Was that, and we've been very fortunate. We've been able to harvest some incredible deer, and a lot of them over the years. So been a lot of fun. But I can tell you every story, not only of mine, right down to the detail, to the wind direction, to the location. I can tell you every detail of my brothers, even though I wasn't there. You replay it and you remember it. So
Wow. Favorite province or territory to hunt in Canada?
What species?
Just general. I know,
Yeah.
so many.
Yeah, see, this is what you'd call first world problem, right? I'm gonna actually struggle to answer that for you. So extremely spoiled, beyond blessed, no matter what. And I don't know if my brothers would differ on this, but I think they're very similar. There's something about the mountains. There's something incredibly magical about them. My first time ever there, maybe it's because we're from Southern Ontario, and a ski hill here is truly a rolling hill, and out there, so my first time in 2009 ever stepping foot inside the Rocky Mountains for an outdoor adventure, I was on horseback traveling 2 days over 60 kilometers through trails and mountain on a horse, and I just became a complete spectator. I get shivers talking about my mind was just filled with emotions of this grand beauty, and I can honestly say the hunting became just a bonus. The event itself became my own cinematography piece of heaven. So the mountains are spectacular. So Yukon and BC have a tremendous piece of my heart, and to hunt in a place that you can ride a horse for 2 days, hike for 7, and not see a human is definitely spectacular. And the animals out there are pretty cool. So BC would have 19 big game species species of North American 29, where Ontario with elk added would have 4. So,
Right.
yeah, the mountain ranges probably are my answer if you had to ask me my favorite.
I knew you were going to say that. I just had this feeling, and it's funny that I mentioned the video at the beginning. That's where you shot that video, was in the Yukon, if I'm correct. But
that's right.
Yeah. So
yeah,
okay.
that video, if I could, and I don't know how to tell you for time, that video is very unique because there was nothing scripted or planned about that, and that was on a 10-day Yukon adventure where, although I harvested a world-class caribou on day 2, on day 10 when that was filmed, I was eating a moose tag, and we'd spent 7 days trying, and our last ditch effort was 2 days into this back valley, which took us a day of riding and a day of hiking, and we got snowed out. So the only thing that happened on that entire end of my trip was I seen 17 moose run out of a valley in a storm, and that's it. And we had to suck up and lick our wounds and leave holding a Yukon moose tag, which I know you know. And the night I shot my caribou, I seen a 60-inch giant on another mountain range, and we went back the next day and he wasn't there. So that was on the back of emotions, like tremendous emotions, because you're at the end of your physical and mental limits in those moments. You're done. And although I'd harvested a caribou, my dream on that trip hadn't come true. But every hunter knows this. We do not define the success of our hunts at all by what we harvested. So I love talking score and about what we shot. It's a lot of fun. I love it. And I love looking around my office at, there's 4 deer heads in here that you can't see. And I love that. But some of my greatest memories in the outdoors have nothing to do, and I know you guys would be the same, and everybody listening, nothing to do with what we harvested. So that Why We Hunt video came up very spur of the moment by our producer, Mike, saying, why don't we do this? Why don't we talk about this? Why don't we put these emotions, him and our sharing, riding on a horse and soaked from blizzards and sleeping on the ground in a wall tent, into why we do this? And so that one was very raw and very real. So I appreciate you bringing it up, because hopefully it's something every hunter can relate to and we can all feel part of, where it's just part of the reality of it. You can have a favorite moment that had nothing to do with a harvest or a kill.
Yeah, it's funny. Not that I could see the pain on your face from, the loss of the moose tag, because you don't explain that in the video, and there's no real premise to the video. It's just, you talking in raw emotion, but I could see that it was not scripted. I could see that you were speaking from the heart, from years of experience, and that's kind of what caught my attention. Your words were right on the money, but sitting on the mountainside with the horses in the background and the snow, and you look tired, and I'm not poking fun at you, but it was just, that was the right moment to shoot that video. So well done.
Yeah, thank you. And you're not poking fun at all, because I go back in a minute. Like I jump right back in there if someone let me go, because those are what we all treasure. I mean, we all treasure these moments, literally. And I'll say it over and over and over again. The world doesn't understand the hunter. They don't understand who we are. And you mentioned it in your prelude at the beginning. We don't advocate enough for ourselves because it's part of our life. So we don't think to advocate. It's who we are. So we don't think to tell everybody what we really do or what really happens to the animal, or if we don't get one, that it's really okay. We're not out to get blood. We're out to get good food. That's a byproduct. But let's face it, in 2021, we all don't just hunt for food like maybe our forefathers did. We hunt for many other reasons on top of the food. And part of it's just to be outdoors and enjoy the greatness of being outside and enjoy the hunt itself, and to do it with family, to do it with friends. The meat for us is an incredible bonus. Yeah, a lot of fun to talk about.
Yeah,
there is something so just ridiculously satisfying about processing and dealing with your own venison steaks and roasts, and being able to feed your family with stuff. But I mean, if it does come down to feeding your family, we're not going to hunt turkeys and do what we do with turkey hunting. I mean, that dollars per pound of meat that you end up eating, it's way more expensive than Alaskan king crab, that's for sure. But such an extraordinary experience. I mean, we've all been there, being in the woods in the morning as the sun's coming up and hearing a tom on the roost gobbling. I mean, it's just one of the greatest experiences ever. That's funny when asked about what your favorite province is, and your response was what species. If it came to turkeys, have you had the opportunity to hunt turkeys outside of Ontario or outside of Canada at all?
I have not, and we've been very privileged here to access some incredible land and learn to be what I would call okay turkey hunters. But the beginning was pretty embarrassing for us. But no, I mean, I dream of hunting them in the southern slopes of BC mountains. I mean, someday chasing an Osceola in Florida. Like I dream of all those things, but no, we haven't had the chance to do it. And someday for sure, but Ontario sure lets us shake off the cabin fever every year. We cannot wait to get out as a family and get hunting. And Paul has a daughter who's now licensed, and I have 2 children who are now licensed. So last year for me, my turkey hunting grew from the boys and I to our guests to our children, and that made my season 1,000 times better, being able to not only add hunting to it, but do that with my own children. And I've taken them since they're little for me to pull the trigger, but I'm sure anybody listening to this that's been with a kid before, whether it's theirs or not, you want to add to your hunting enjoyment, go let a kid pull the trigger for you, and you see the look on their face when they enjoy a good hunt. Pretty spectacular.
Right. And it's a lot less, frankly, complicated than going fishing with a little kid, where you've got lines and hooks and all kinds of different challenges.
Yeah,
snacks and blankets and
yeah. I have 5, so they're 5 years old to 14, and fishing I probably do the most with them because, as you know, with my profession, I need my tags for what we do filming. So it's, getting them out is hard, and sharing the time with them is hard. So fishing I can do endless. So we spend a lot of time in a boat. So I'm laughing inside at what you're saying, because yeah, I've opened a lot of tangles up or just cut all the line and said forget it. But I always carry multiple rods because yeah.
One of the cool things about fishing too, though, is that there's no real price point to it. And that's for a little kid that wants to go out fishing, you can literally have a stick, a line, and a bobber and a worm, and stand on a bank and actually have a good chance of catching something. It's not like that with turkey hunting or grouse hunting or any element of hunting. That one of the cool things about fishing in Ontario. One of the things that I did want to sort of touch on about turkey hunters, we don't realize how spoiled we are until you have an opportunity to hunt in other areas. Hunting turkeys in Ontario is really world class. We've got access to so much land. The turkeys are not really pressured like they are. Like I got schooled last year hunting turkeys in New York because of COVID and being restricted with travel opportunities. I wound up spending a fair amount of time in my property in New York, hunting that area and, getting some permission on local properties. But turkeys are pressured. There's a lot of competition. It was very, very different experience than what turkey hunting in Ontario was like. And I've yet to shoot a New York turkey, as I don't want to say as an adult, because I came down here about 20 years ago and shot a couple of turkeys. I was fortunate to travel back then, but wow, hunting last year was a different experience. That's for sure.
No, it's a great point. We're very lucky. And I think for those of us, and you guys will be included in this, that remember turkeys coming into your area, we do remember a lot harder days when there was, two legal birds covering 5 or 6 different farms, and they were getting hunted on all those farms, and they were very elusive. But as they filled in and filled all the pockets, made for some spectacular hunting and not as educated animals here.
So when it comes to turkey and turkey gear, that's something I've been just itching to talk to you guys about. But what do you carry in your vest? What sort of equipment do you like to have on you when you go turkey hunting?
Yeah, so I mean, in the early years, probably like fishing, I had more than I should have. I felt like I needed to. My fishing, I'd have a giant fishing box when I was 20 years old, full of 80 baits, and I'd use 2. So now I've streamlined my turkey hunting and my fishing, not to compare them, but it's an analogy, I guess, that makes sense to people. In my vest, I'm a big mouth diaphragm collar. So I always have 1 or 2 diaphragms. I don't have 10. So I have 1 or 2 diaphragms, and then I always have a slate call. So that's my combo. So I'm not a big box call guy. I'm not a push button guy. I'm a diaphragm and a slate. So I like to finish with my slate, and I like to do all my heavy loud work with my diaphragm. So that's my go-to. I used to carry locator calls, crow calls, owl hoots. I don't carry any of that anymore. Scouting's become very heavy with binos and trucks and on foot the day before. So I'm not often trying to locate in wee hours of the morning or dusk. I've done my homework to know where they're living and what they're doing. And so I'm not often trying to find them. So that's a big one for us. And then that's basically it. But one of the critical pieces to my kit, no, I didn't plan this, but I got a vest sitting right here. Hold on. One of the critical pieces to my kit is I always have a vest with the seat built in. So that would be the greatest piece to my turkey outfit that I would ever have, is that the seat flaps down. It holds your own weight, so you don't need a tree, you don't need a rest, that you can self-contain your old spot when you need to, and you can sit for hours and comfortably. Because in the early years, we used to carry around the foam pad or whatever, or just get your butt on a root. That little self-contained. So my vest always has that. Whatever brand it is, doesn't matter. It always has that. But those three things would be my go-to for sure: a diaphragm, a slate, and a seat built into my vest. And not just a flap down foam. I mean straps that hold your weight to lean back and sit on it, actually rest.
Right on. The lures are for the fishermen, not for the fish.
That's a good point.
It is interesting to see where comfort has moved on our scale as we mature as hunters, because when we're in your early 20s, you didn't care about comfort. I think and there's your gear that didn't matter if it was raining or snowing or it's sunny and hot. I had the same clothes, so it's just comfort just didn't have anything to do with it. Whereas today, it's all about the comfort, and not only is the hunt more enjoyable, but I'm actually a better hunter because I'm not fidgeting, I'm not having to move because I'm cold or anything.
That's the key.
Well, if your butt falls asleep and your legs then fall asleep, and then there's a big turkey coming in, that is, I've been there a few times. I'm a big man, so pressure on my butt and not having something comfortable, that's a tough situation. Sometimes you can't swing or move. You have to get up and get the blood flowing again. So comfort's big.
It's funny with the streamlining your vest. I've always got extra everything. So I've got extra gloves or an extra face mask, because somebody that you're with has always forgotten something. Like,
using my son.
I was gonna say, I don't know how many times I've given Connor an extra face mask or pair of gloves or something like that.
That's a great point. I should preface. Yeah, we each have a hockey bag, camel hockey bag that's in the truck all spring, that's full of every layer, every option, 7 face masks. So I should qualify that. Always within a kilometer of me is a vast bag full of gear. But yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. So when it comes to bucket lists, like you guys have had opportunities that most of us would only ever dream about, but is there something that's on your list that you're still striving to achieve, or a dream out there that you're working towards?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking. To be honest, I dream of someday, and I really don't think it's even realistic. So I don't mean to poo-poo this, but my bucket list, I don't believe will be realistic. Supply and demand and value of them is so high and not going anywhere. I dream of shooting a curled sheep. So whether that be a stone sheep, a bighorn sheep, a fanon, or a doll sheep, there's 5 recognized subspecies based in North America of curled sheep, or there's some in Russia, and that's my dream. Is a Rocky Mountain, really one of those sheep. It'll probably never happen. So in our 13 years of filming the show, one has come available, and it was Kevin's turn again, the big buck brother. He got to go shoot a 10-year-old ram in the Yukon. So not far from where I filmed that Why We Hunt video. He shot an incredible, it was a bit of a cross species between the stone sheep and the fanon sheep, the white ones and the blue-gray ones. So they call it basically a fanon. And he shot an old 10-year age ringed, incredible ram, 6,000 feet up on a peak after a long hike in a blizzard, just some epic stuff. So that's my true bucket list on anywhere on the planet. I'd give up 100 other hunts to go experience one of those.
Wow. Now you mentioned Kevin's turn. How do you guys pick? Do you have a list, or roll the dice, or
I'm the chubbiest and the biggest, so I threaten a lot, but no, you know, we've had the exact same system since long before the business side come into the brothers hunting together. Now it's really easy because it's so in our own hometown. When it comes to big bucks, we all work so hard to find deer. Like it's all or nothing. We all work together. Or it doesn't work, and you don't treat the rest of the country on the scale of at home, because at home it's just different. So the last one to shoot a big buck here is now C, and A and B guys are up that year. And whoever A is, any night he can hunt, he gets to pick what deer he chases and what spot he goes. B picks second. If A can't go because it's kids have hockey, B picks. So last year I was A, I shot first. Kevin was C, but he ended up shooting because Paul couldn't go. So Kevin, I got mature bucks in Peterborough last year. So Paul will automatically become A option for 2021. That makes sense. When it comes to the show and filming across the country, logistics, timing, and schedules have a big way to do with it. But Paul shot an incredible muskox with his bow in the Northwest Territories back in 2010. We've never had another muskox hunt. So the next muskox hunt, no questions asked, won't be Paul. So Kevin and I will get that trip. Kevin shot a sheep. Next one, I've shot a mountain goat. They're first. So until you've checked off, I've shot the biggest elk. So the next one that's an elk will go. Just goes like that. So, and then on the year, we lay out the best trips, put them into after those things have been decided, and we just withdraw. So Kevin will get the Newfoundland moose and the Manitoba whitetails in his package, and Keith will get the Alberta mule deer and the Saskatchewan whitetail in his package, and you just draw for them after all those parameters have been met. Well, sounds confusing. To us, it's actually pretty simple.
No, it sounds perfect. It's Carlin, imagine being at the table when that's going on.
Oh, I know. I think I'd revert to the biggest and, headlocks and.
Yeah, well, I'd like to sometimes, especially when that 198-inch deer was walking around. That 198-inch deer was so big, even though Kevin had already shot a giant locally, it's so big we had to forget turns and just make it so even for everybody. So every day for 19 days minus Sundays, we don't hunt on Sundays. Even though it's legal here, that's a family day for us. We hunted that deer with a camera every day, and it was just each brother rotated until we caught up with them. And it happened to be Paul's day, but his little 10-year-old girl had her appendix at 11 the night before, and we knew that deer was moving, so Kevin got to go in and we'll talk to Paul about it. He's more sensitive of it than me, but yeah, so Kevin got to go get that guy.
That's actually an interesting sidebar conversation, and what trail cameras have done to how we scout, how we identify deer, how we follow deer, pattern deer, and know when to hunt a particular deer on a certain property. You get all the wind conditions right. It's like, oh, you know what? Today is actually a perfect day to pursue. I think it was 64 that was the big deer, right? Yep. And I think I remember the episode where Kevin was shooting, and he actually watched it for quite a while before he could get the perfect shot on him. Am I thinking of the right deer?
You have the right deer to throw on. So 64 is the 198 giant that hasn't gone to air, and Ralphie is the episode you're talking about where we chased. Okay. So yeah, we needed the right wind and the right day, and he sat up on a knoll watching it for an hour and a half with a doe before he got a shot on it. But yeah. But I think ironically to that deer, we knew where he lived, but he covered a mile every day. So we hunted him over 4 different farms and 3 roads. But the cameras helped tremendously knowing when he's left a piece.
And I don't think that Kevin was supposed to be there that day when he got Ralphie. You're right. I did get those two confused, but again, just something had happened. He got to sort of skip a turn and was actually out, wound up being in the right place, the right time, and got just an extraordinary deer. But we couldn't do that without trail cameras. It's the technology has done an amazing thing for our ability to scout and hunt deer.
Amazing. No, you're right. And like most of us, we started before trail cameras, and then we moved to when it was a piece of film, and you went to Walmart and developed 24 pictures, and you hope they all weren't a wind blowing a branch, but most of them were sometimes.
I've actually still got a camera that's got the string in it, and when you bust the string out,
it would the true trail. Trip the trail camera, yeah.
I never once got a picture
That's
of
an
anything
antique.
on it. I'll never get rid of it, but it's you never got a picture of it because like the timing was off, or it could be birds, or just ridiculous back in the day. But now we've got cameras that'll take a picture and email it to you, and you can be sitting on your phone and deer in front of my stand right now.
Amazing the difference for sure. But with that, it's kind of like the NHL, right? Gretzky set all those records with barely a curve on a 6-pound Titan log piece of stick. And now, these sticks are so incredible and light, and they got whip in them, and Matthews and Ovechkin shoot so well with them, but everything's comparable. The game's changed to help us, but the pressure on these bucks now has never been greater because now everybody knows that on that block a giant deer lives. So now guys are passing 120, 130, waiting all season for that 155 because it lives. Where in 1998, we didn't pass a 130 because you didn't know a 150 lived. You would know unless you've seen it with your own eyes. So it's educated the masses and created all good. Technology's also brought way more pressure. And guys will literally wait all season on a deer, where that never happened before because you didn't know much about that deer. It was very elusive, more of a ghost. So some major pros and cons to it.
Is that something that comes up in your conversations with QDMA, and whether or not that's actually been a benefit to the to the sport or to the species themselves? Like, is that, I know in terms of antler growth and letting the small ones go, that's becoming embraced like everywhere. In New York, it's let them go, let them grow. That's kind of a mantra. And more people are passing on the does. They're certainly passing on the smaller bucks. But generally speaking, is it viewed as a positive for the pursuit?
Oh yeah, because the health herd is now managed accordingly. We're a great example. We do not shoot deer according to score at all. So last year, Kevin shot a 6-year-old that had a spike and a regular 10-point sight, and because he had a spike, didn't excuse him from being on the list. But 3-year-old that would have scored better 100% got a pass. But we knew what the area held. We knew there were 17 deer in it. 7 of them were bucks, and 2 of them were of the age class we were looking for. So it's helped everybody know and understand what's living in their woods, and know when there's too many does and harvest does. But for bucks, it's never been better because now you have upper age classes making it there, where before a 130 would have ran through the bush and you didn't look at his body, you just shot it not knowing. And if it was only 3.5, it's fine, and it's still fine to this day. But if that 3.5 lives to 5.5 and is breeding at 5.5 compared to 3.5, it helps the other younger deer be healthy, right? And that's what it's done. It's allowed age classes of deer to roam on all of our properties through people being more selective and letting herd grow a little bit because of survey off cameras.
It is wild. I was reflecting on that this past fall, where I'm watching deer and letting deer go that I would have I fantasized about as a 20-year-old hunting on I had 2 Saturdays, being in school, and our season was 2 weeks. I wasn't a bow hunter back then, so, and because you've got school and work Monday through Friday, my deer season was literally 2 days. It was 2 Saturdays, and if you saw
you're taking advantage of whatever you could get.
Oh God! And that's if you were lucky to see a deer, and that I mean, mentioned earlier, if it's brown, it's down. I mean, that was literally a hunting way of life for many years. But it is, I think, much better today, where you can be selective and make those choices.
Trail cam is for turkeys. You guys use them a lot. Is that something that people should be looking at to identify the turkeys or identify the areas?
So, yeah, great question. I mean, one of the first things I'll ever say with trail cameras is they make hunting better for sure, but we are just trail camera junkies because we love checking a card. Like, we love seeing pictures and videos of animals. So never once have we ever got a trail camera picture of a turkey and said, those spurs and that beard are like, we're going after that. But we love seeing where they pitch down from the roost and spend some time. So fields are super easy, but we got some properties that birds spend a lot of time pitching onto hardwood ridges and staying in that timber. So we love knowing where that spot is. So, Is it easy to tell by walking in there? Absolutely. But I'd rather not walk in there and not bump them at the wrong time. So if we put one up on April 21st and I can check it by satellite pictures or text, we got a good idea what they're doing. Or we love them on farmers gaps and gates. We love knowing what fields and where they're moving through, because whenever you go for an afternoon hunt, it sure helps if you know where the birds want to be at 5 or 6 o'clock, and at 2 or 3 when you set up, you know those locations, how they're getting there. It makes your world a lot easier. And for most of us, I mean, we're busy too, right? Like people think we just hunt. I mean, I think that's the myth, and I like people thinking that. But reality is, I'm at my desk all day today running it. This is a Monday to Friday 9 to 5 company with 7 employees. We hunt 5% of the time. So even in turkey season, we're done. We're back at our desk. So I don't have all day to just go do this, as people might think. So most of us hunt afternoons because you get off work at 2 or 3, you can get out for an evening hunt. And let's face it, evening hunts are not easy as morning hunts. You don't know where they are right now unless you can find them ahead of time. So yeah, I think trail cameras help a lot. Just educate us. And farm only has 1 Tom and 3 Jakes on it, and we have 2 kids that want to shoot a bird that day, we probably avoid that place till we have a solo hunter, so we're managing things right and not beating up an area, because probably like your area, our birds cover a ton of ground. And that first 3 weeks of the season, while those hens are breaking the nest, we'll have Toms moving 5-7 farms in a day. So when and where we take one from is important, and the cameras really help us survey to know what's around.
Oh, that's
funny. I've tried cameras with turkeys a few different times on a few different properties, and frankly I get frustrated because, like, I don't think that turkeys are quite as predictable as deer are when it comes to walking the same trail from, you know, a bedding area to a feeding area. And they can, you know, certainly move through a same area and end up in the same general area that they were heading to, but you can walk 20 feet this side of your camera, or, you know, 40 feet the other side just as easily as they walk right in front of it. You make a great point about putting it in a gap between 2 fields, because, you know, any of those funnels and pinch points, it gives you a good idea of what's actually happening. But you know, for the most part, if I wind up with turkeys on my trail camera, it's just a fluke. You know, I'm just as likely to get coyotes or, you know, trespassers,
raccoons and squirrels.
That's right.
Okay, what about favorite time of day to hunt turkeys?
Yeah, so if it wasn't for TV, this is a 2-sided question. If it wasn't for TV, 10 to 2, 100%. 10 a.m. to 10 to 2 would, like, without a doubt, I would knock it up at 4, and I would go out 10 in the morning and love every minute of glassing, spot and stock, and run and gun, as most of us call it. I think if you want to shoot a big Tom, the easiest, you go out when the hens are gone back to nest, and those boys are running around, still looking, walking, still a little fired up for the morning. So without a doubt, no question asked, 10 a.m. to 12 to 2 would be, without a doubt, my favorite time to turkey hunt. It doesn't make very good television. So right. The best TV for us, in our opinion, again, you guys have to know this, we don't think we're any better hunters than anybody out there. We're just happen to be very fortunate to film it. So whenever I say these things, it's just my opinion and what works for us. But great TV for us is putting the birds to bed and showing that you know where they live, setting up in the morning in the dark, and waking up to the camera, seeing the sunrise and birds off in the distance, gobbling, lighting, pitching down, chasing some hens, and then you tricking that big boy into coming into your decoy. That for us is how we make our television side of turkey hunting. Run and gun is very quick, very fast, incredibly exciting, but not great TV. So you'll rarely see us do it on TV.
It's funny. I think I've watched almost all of your turkey episodes, and a majority, if not all of them that I've seen, are in Ontario birds. So, and again, it's early morning, you know, that's when the woods are just lit up with the gobblers, and you guys get some incredible shots. And I was just saying to my son last night, we were watching one of your episodes, and one of the Toms gobbled and you could see his breath. And I said to my son, Connor, like, that's the holy grail shot right there. When you get that gobble and you can see the breath, and then you know, slow it down in slow motion, and that is good TV. But I couldn't agree with you more. 10 to 2 is my favorite time. getting up early and dragging my butt out of bed and, walking a mile into the woods. I do it a lot because I enjoy the interaction so much with the turkeys and just listening to them sound off in the bush around, and and the bush waking up around you, all the animals and the sun rising. Just like you said, it's makes for great memories, great TV, but 10 to 2 is my favorite time as well.
That's funny. I've killed most of my turkeys probably between 9 and 10 o'clock. But my favorite time to be out in the woods is just as it's getting light. Like that to me is why I turkey hunt. It's just seeing the world wake up and hearing turkeys, and how often does a turkey fly off the roost and come into your decoys and present a shot? It's so rare, but like that's just the one hunt I don't need an alarm for. I can, I'm never late. I just wake up in the morning and I'm ready to go. Yeah. But I do think that 10 o'clock time, and it's for anybody listening that, if you've got some flexibility, make note of what everybody's saying there. Most of the birds are killed later morning because the reality is toms don't want to come off the roost and unless they can see hens. And they're going to stay with those hens. They're not going to leave hens that are with to investigate, a new maybe hen. And it's when the hens that they're with, they've already been bred and they leave to go and sit on their nests. That's when those toms become vulnerable. And there's also an awful lot of people that, they get up too early, they get bored, they're tired, they're frustrated because their morning hasn't worked out. An awful lot of people have left the woods by 9 o'clock. So at 10 o'clock, you've got the woods to yourself. Toms will come back to where they were gobbling earlier, and it's a great time to kill a turkey. But I think that everybody's going to have a bit of a different time slot and what becomes favorite. Sort of interesting.
Well, and I think they're two different things, though, Ian. Favorite time in the woods, I'm with you. Like, as the sun comes up and the birds light up, it's my favorite time. But it is the most difficult time of the day, in my opinion, to shoot a big tom because with 15 girlfriends, he doesn't need to go see who you are. And 9 out of 10 times when we kill a big tom in that first hour coming off the roost, it's because the hen come in with him, or we set up close enough where he wasn't leaving the hens to check us. And that is a big strategy of ours, to find a way to get in tight enough where he comes in. But if people have the patience, and to me, that's the number one problem of turkey hunters, if they're not being successful, patience. If you have the time, instead of taking 5 mornings off in a week, if you just go that first day and take the entire day off and sit in your blind, I just about guarantee you most guys would tag out that first day if you don't leave at 8, 9, 10 a.m. frustrated because the morning didn't work out, because it's hard in the morning. It takes a lot to trick those big boys. But we joke all the time. We need the morning footage, but if we want to get the show done, we just stay in the blind all day. You will get one of those big boys. And I'm convinced, and you can never say for sure, toms remember where they heard a hen that didn't come into them. Yep. When those girls go off the nest, which is usually, if you want to pinpoint, it's 8:30. They'll wander back to see who they left behind or who didn't come in. And, we've had tons of success with that, just staying put. Later on, you hear that returning gobble come at 8:30 or 9. Here he comes back to see who's there once the girls head off the nest.
That's such a cool point, and it's easy to forget that if we hunted turkeys like we hunt deer, we'd probably be more successful.
I believe that. And how many, we've all done it. I know people listening have done this. We want so many times to follow the birds or to get up and go over the next hill or walk or move. And we've all done it. We've all done that and stepped on silent birds and wrecked our entire day and put them into the next county. And you just sit tight and have the time to pack a lunch and just enjoy your day. You hunt that first day all day, you'll shoot a bird. I depending on the property, but if you hunted them off the roost and they're there, they're not far. Those birds aren't walking 2 miles a day. There's a reason they slept there.
Blinds for beginners, blinds or leaning up against a tree?
Yeah, I mean, listen, a blind will make anybody's hunt way more successful. You can hide way better. You can sit way more comfortably, but it comes with a con. It's heavier. It's noisier to set up. So this is no secret. We do this all the time. We'll show it on the show. This is no secret. We don't go to bed very early on turkey nights because after we put them to bed, we stay and wait the hour. If we found the birds, like times before night, 3 of us are out till 11 o'clock because as soon as they're to bed, we wait till it's dark, which is 9:30 or 10, and then we go set up the morning setup. So that's our strategy, and that's why most of our hunts are so successful. Last year during COVID, we had to film all of our hunts with double blinds because our camera guys had to be 6 feet apart. So the blinds can hide everything. It's just the key setting them up. If you go in the morning, and I will say this across Southern Ontario, we've hunted from Windsor to auto on turkeys, and some people's birds are different. So these rules are different. But if you set up within 100 yards of a turkey 30 minutes before sunrise and they hear you, I am convinced most of the time they will go the other way. You may have the toms talking to you all morning, but the hens knew and they're aware and they're not as fired up as that tom is. They're going to come down and drift the other way from you. But if you can set that blind up the night before and they don't know you're there, you can skin into it, have your doors already open and sit down, have your chairs already out, your decoys laying out of bags ready to go. That's our strategy. And then we just sneak in the morning, stick 2 decoys in the ground, and away we go. And on the topic of decoys, not to talk too much here, I mean, tom decoys work amazing. There's always a time and a place, but there's a time and a place. Where a jake and a hen decoy, it's every time and every place. There's no bird threatened by a jake. So jakes come in, big toms come in, giant toms come in, young toms come in, where we've watched lots of birds get intimidated by a tom because they've been beat up once or twice and they're not willing to take a chance. So don't throw your tom decoy out. There's a time and a place for it, but I would say 99% of the time we carry a jake decoy and a hen or 2. And it's the jake quarter strut that's the key. I don't care what brand you use. Quarter strut jake is critical. Some companies, and not even as expensive you think of, I think accidentally made the perfect quarter strut attitude one where that tom just can't handle himself. There's some better than others. Jake decoys are a piece of the puzzle that we find works really well.
You made 2 points that I want to come back to and just make sure that everybody listening has really heard. And one is that when you put turkeys to bed, which I think is a really crucial part to turkey hunting. If you're going to hunt the morning and be successful at it, it's because you put turkeys to bed the night before, I think. But staying that extra hour and then going in and making sure we're setting up your blind and, like you said, having your chairs ready and the doors open. You're not messing around with zippers and all that kind of stuff. But if you're not going to be hunting out of a blind, pick your tree, clear the area of leaves and branches, and do your trimming if you can do it. Like you still don't, you got to be careful to not disrupt the area too much, and you've got to be stealthy still. But if you wake up and you know what tree you're going to sit at, and you've already got your shooting lane kind of, organized in your mind, and it's just a matter of literally sneaking in, getting to your tree and, getting a decoy out, sitting down versus, and again, I'm sure we've all been there, and you get it in the morning, okay, now where am I going to sit? And you sit down and you're moving branches, and it's just not nearly as organized. And I think you've got to be, being more organized, I think the night before is going to help you a great deal. The second,
we all have a rake in our truck. Is like exactly that. So you don't only clear your tree, but sometimes we cleared a 50-yard path into the timber to make sure we're in stealthy in the morning. So I think it's a great point.
Oh, keeping a rake in your truck. That's every goose hunter will tell you the same thing. So they, raking up, corn stalks and stuff like that to build their blind. But you know what? That's, I've hunted turkeys an awful lot, and I never would have thought to carry a rake in my truck. But using the quarter strut jake decoy, and that's, it's funny because as soon as you start, implementing some new ideas and some new strategies, your success jumps significantly. Part of that is confidence. Part of that's experience. But I think that technology and some of the decoys that are out there play a big part of that. And what a game changer when somebody thought to create a jake decoy in quarter strut. Now, would you put that over top of a hen that you just lay on the ground to make it look like they're breeding? Do you set them on his own? What I'm with you. I carry one with me all the time now, but I'm curious to how you actually use it.
Yeah, so you'll watch each of us have our own little personal touch to our decoys, but we all follow the same rules. We never do put them on as if they're breeding. Never. It works. I know it works, and this is just a personal thing. We always have that jake 3 to 4 feet behind a hen, and always a feeding hen. We never have them behind an alert hen. If we have a third decoy, the alert hen is off looking. The feeding hen is where the jake's behind, 3 to 4 feet, just directly behind 3 to 4 feet. We always want to make it look like that hen's minding their own business, and that jake is trying really hard to get close enough for her to eventually let him in. So we find what it does is it leaves room for interpretation of any turkey that wants to come in. Is there's a hen still available, and that jake is quarter strutting to impress her. And as soon as that tom or other jakes come in and see he's not backing down, that's when they lose it. Where if she's set on the hen, unless it's a set that is built for this, they fall over too easy. We found the hen can bump them too easy. If a hen comes in and gets annoyed by it, and then your hunt can be over if the early bird, you're not trying to shoot topples them. Where we have them well staked, and we even make sure the night before we break 2 sticks to put each side of the tail so that the wind can't blow them, or the hen pecking at the head, or the jakes before the tom gets there doesn't spin them or knock them over and cause a problem. So the night before, we're so big into preparation that we have our decoys out in our blind already with the sticks broken, and the sticks go out in the field in the dark, so we know our 14, 18, 20 yards ahead of time, so you're not fumbling around in the morning. I know exactly where I'm walking to that stick in the morning, or I leave a branch laying there, so there's no guessing. So I don't know if I answered your question there, but we don't put it in a breeding position. We put it just behind it, looking like it's real interesting.
Will you put, like, I know that I always have a decoy at 25 yards just because I like to use it as a rangefinder. But I'll put my hen facing away, and I'll put the jake closer to me, and like you said, in behind her. Would you put it past her facing you, or how do you determine what direction they're facing?
So we always like them, depending on where the birds are roosting and pitching, determines how the decoys are set. It has nothing to do with us as the hunter. So we want the birds to, when they pitch, they see the birds decoys broadside. We don't want them to see them face on. And that the math simply on that is we want the turkeys, when they hit the ground, to see the most turkeys possible. Instead of looking at them like that, we want them to look and see them broadside. So that's how we lay them out. There's nothing to do with us taking the shot. The ammo for turkeys is so good now, we don't want to be shooting one with a gun at 14 yards because your chances of your pattern them. So our gun shots are usually 23 to 25 for the decoy. If we're bow hunting, we like them 14 to 18. We like them in tight and make sure we can do it. That's kind of our math for ourselves, kind of our system.
That's interesting. You know what? I think that more turkeys are actually missed in that 5 to 10 yard range. But deer too, frankly, because we're not practicing those shots. Practice
your
20,
pattern
40
is not
yards.
open until 10, 11 yards. And even then, it's not opening past hardball. So, but I find most guys make the mistake in the dark of they're trying to be quiet, they're trying to be stealthy, and they're trying to pace it out, but they're not. And they set their decoys way too close in the early morning because it's so hard to tell distance, engage distance in the dark. So that stick in the ground the night before, paced out properly, I find critical. And I'll tell you, most times when I'm walking back to that stick, I can't believe in my mind how far it is. It tells me I probably would have messed up. And guys will miss turkeys because your pattern's just not big enough in yards.
Oh, especially with all the new ammo and the different wads that keep all that payload tight and want to send it out there. So yeah, it's tough. And patterning is a big piece of that. We do a lot of patterning, and I know you guys do too. It's the ethical piece, and you gotta know your gun, the combination, choke tube, the ammo, the whole package, just to make sure you know exactly where you're shooting. So
When it comes to using bows and broadheads, I would say probably 90+% of bow hunters that decide to take a bow turkey hunting, they're grabbing their whitetail outfit and just bring it into the woods with them. Is that something that you would advocate, or is it imperative that you use a different broadhead? Does that matter?
No, I don't think it does. So I would advocate it. But being very fortunate to have great partners and sponsors, and G5 broadheads, they're very kind to let me order something I really like for moose and something I really like for whitetails and something I really like for turkeys. And our theory with turkeys is we want the biggest, broadest cutting broadhead possible to make the most impact possible. We use for turkeys almost exclusively the biggest mechanical we can get our hands on. And with G5, that's the dead meat. And it's just, we want it to open as big as possible. As you know, you're not shooting in an area that wrecks meat, and we're trying to get that open big and quick. And a big mechanical is our go-to for turkey hunting with a bow.
That's again, just making notes. It's good to actually hear. It's funny when we introduced Sunday hunting, or allowing firearm use to hunt on Sundays. You've always been able to hunt on Sundays. You just couldn't use a gun. I stopped using a bow predominantly. There's still some areas that I think are just a little bit more conducive to using a bow. But all things being equal, I'd carry a shotgun almost every time. But when I do take a bow, I'm usually, I'm part of that camp that's just grabbing my same whitetail rig and using the same broadheads that I'd be using for whitetails. The difference between using a shotgun, it just gives you so much more advantage. And if there's no noise issue or a safety issue, I'd advocate the use of a gun every time. Carlin, any further thoughts on turkey hunting before we start to wrap this up?
We covered a lot of stuff. There's a lot of information that we covered, and I think for people, and Keith, I think I'm catching on to what you're saying here. It's really the formula that is helping you be successful that maybe you want to stick with. There's all these tips and tricks that everybody else has, but if you're successful, there's a formula that you have figured out, and stick with it. And if you're not successful, then you have to find that little piece that you're missing or that you need to change. And we've talked on other podcasts with other guests, and that was my issue, and that was Ian's issue. And I think it's every new turkey hunter's issue is you have to find those pieces, put all that puzzle together, and then ensure that it's a successful outcome. So Keith, would you agree with that?
I would. And I hate throwing advice out like it's like people need to take it, because this is, you guys know, there's a million ways to shoot a turkey this spring, and they're all going to work. And then there's going to be a million ways that don't. But one of the best things that we learned over time was very rarely on a morning setup, when we've done all our homework, know where the birds went to bed, have our blind, have the decoys in the right spot, do we shoot a bird by using our call. I find the number one mistake newer turkey hunters make is they love so much hearing the toms respond or the jakes respond to them that they get a kick out of, and I don't blame them, all morning talking back and forth. But in our minds, what that does is it educates 3, 4, 5, 15 hens to say, why would I come down and go over to that competition when I can come down and go that way? So most of those guys, in my experience, will have those birds hit the ground and drift the other way, because why would the hens come compete with you? We go the opposite. We don't say a word ever until they're on the ground. If we do talk, it's because they're drifting the wrong way and we want to work that hen. And often then we're working both the hen and the tom, whoever's paying most attention, the big boss girl, or working him. Whatever one we need to work, that's who we're talking to. And it's after they're on the ground. We never make a call if we're set up on roosting birds until they're on the ground. So that would be a little piece of advice for anybody new this spring, is to less is actually more on those morning setups.
You're right. The pressure to respond to those toms, and that's one of the things that I learned very early on, that's not what's going to bring them in. I'm basically, yelling in their ear all the time, and less is more. So thanks for that.
Funny, going back to 20 years ago when we were getting started, or 30 years ago now, those old magazines that talk about don't call to a roosted tom, but when you're in the woods and you hear a gobble and you call and he gobbles, how can you not? Yeah, maybe that's why we don't kill birds at sunup. It's such a pleasure to chat with you, Keith, because it's funny, Carlin and I we'll go on stage at the Toronto Sportsman Show talking about how to hunt turkeys and telling people what to do, but every time we have a conversation like this, you're learning something else or picking up a new little trick. And I know we're going to certainly add a rate to my repertoire in the back of the truck, and setting up at night versus setting up in the morning. I think it's a great point for people that don't have a sort of a routine spot where they're going to be setting up to hunt. I think that those are great takeaways.
Yeah. Keith, thanks so much. We truly appreciate you coming on today and taking the time, and just being advocates for us and everybody in the hunting outdoors industry and hunters and outdoor people in general. We need more spokespeople like you and your brothers out there advocating for us on a daily basis, because really we don't do a great job at it. over time, and the more I learn and the more I research, there's more points to bring up with people, the conservation piece, and we could go on for hours and talk about Africa and how that all works, but just truly thankful. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it, guys. My brothers and I want to thank you for doing this. We're very blessed to do what we do, but we also hope that the hunters in Canada feel like we're representing them properly and you're proud of what we're producing. And kind of a bit of a shocking piece of information that people may not realize, we're the last national all hunting show left. So there's a couple that do hunt and fish, but we're the only ones left doing all hunt. And it's a fine line. And it's a delicate thing. And once ours is gone, I don't know, we'll be here as long as possible, but it's a fight every day to make sure the public is allowing us to stay on national television doing hunt. It's a hot topic. So I appreciate the support. We appreciate the support from the bottom of our hearts. The public is what allows us to do this. So genuinely, from my brothers and our families and I, thank you to everyone listening for supporting hunting and supporting Canada in the Rough and the magazine. It truly means the world to us. So thank you.
It's been a real pleasure to chat with you and to echo Carlin's sentiments. You and your brothers are such great ambassadors, and you represent all hunters so well. To just keep doing what you're doing, and keep having fun doing it. I know that it's been a grind for you guys, but you've done extraordinary things for the sport, and you know what, I'm really appreciative. So keep doing what you're doing, and thanks. Give my regards to your brothers, and thanks for giving us some time today. So
hopefully the next time we talk, the political climate will have changed, and more shows, more hunting shows, outdoor shows are widely accepted on TV. I'm living in a dream world maybe, but I can still hope and dream. But
let's talk again. We can do all day on the political climate and not get political about it. Just talk about the way of life and what we all need to do. So
I hope the next time we talk is just how COVID has changed since we last talked in the spring.
Well, let me know, guys. Anytime we can help, happy to do it. So keep in touch.
I know that the CWTF does appreciate your support and the relationship, the involvement that you guys have had over the years, and it would be remiss if we didn't talk about that for just a second. $35 for a membership, and you get a $25 Bass Pro gift card. If anybody's enjoying turkey hunting today, it's in large part because of the efforts of the CWTF and the NWTF before them. So it costs you $10, and it's such a great cause. But show your support, go onto the CWTF website and check it out. So without any further sort of comments, Keith, really was a pleasure. Really appreciate the time, and just keep doing what you're doing. So Carlin,
thanks, guys.
Thanks, everybody. That's it for the CWTF's Turkey Talk podcast. And how we sign out every show is, don't forget,
keep it real, everybody.
Take care for now.
Thanks for staying with us. You have been listening to the Canadian Wild Turkey Federation's Turkey Talk podcast with your hosts, Carlin and Ian from the Real Outdoor Experience. Tune in next time as we have an amazing lineup of both guests and subjects that span across the outdoors. Don't forget, get your kids outdoors, and always keep it real.